It's absolutely hard to believe that 20 years ago today was the Steve Bartman game. 20 years ago today, our hearts were ripped out from us watching Bartman and those bad hands reach over the railing and interfere with the ball that was about to be caught by Moises Alou. 20 years after the Cubs blew one of the best teams ever. I wonder if that team could have beat the 2016 team when you talk about Pryor and Wood and the pitching and all of the great players that they had around the diamond. But it's 20 years ago today that game 6 happened, and then obviously the game 7 and the colossal disappointment that was that 2003 season. We're going to talk about that here on the Cubs Baseball channel. But first, we're looking for some people to join our channel with better hands than Steve Bartman and maybe a little wiser when the ball's coming down the line. And if that's you, well, then join the channel. Like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. And if you enjoy what we're doing, make sure you hit the bell so you know when we're live. And I want to remind you guys that it took 45 years for the Cubs AA affiliate, the Tennessee Smokies, to win their first championship. Yeah, that goes all the way back to 78. And they're celebrating right now by sponsoring the Cubs Baseball channel. And they want me to tell all of you guys that the championship swag is there. It's good. And that you need to find it and gear up at smokiesbaseball.com/store. All the fits of a champion. And then in 2003, we thought we were going to be getting that championship gear, Chad, but we didn't. It was one of the typical, being a Cubs fan's broken hearts that we've kind of grown accustomed to over the years. But that was, I think, the worst. I was depressed for two or 3 weeks afterwards. I didn't watch Sports Center, which was like such a big part of my life back then, for months. And didn't even hardly watch the World Series. It was just so devastating. And there's just so much to unpack 20 years later. But I'll throw this at you, is if you were born on Bartman Day, which is today, you next year will be able to drink. Now ponder that.
That's mind-blowing, really. I mean, you talk about how fast time flies. That's insane. You've thrown a couple of stats out lately that have blown my mind on our YouTube channels, and that's one of them. It's hard to believe that. I remember, leading up to the Bartman game, maybe I snuck into a bar and watched Game 4 with you down in Alabama, and Randall Simon. Yeah, College. Exactly. Yeah, and Randall Simon comes up with a big hit in Game 4. And then I remember watching Game 5 actually at your house down in Alabama. And it was on a Sunday. And I just remember the Cubs losing that game. But it wasn't gut-wrenching. No. I didn't even care. And I guess I didn't care because I was so young. I don't remember 84 and 89. So there was 98, but the Braves just swept the Cubs. So that Sunday, I just didn't care. And the reason I didn't care is because Mark effing Pryor was pitching in Game 6 at Wrigley.
That's right.
And if that didn't matter, Kerry Wood was pitching Game 7 at Wrigley. It's like there's no way the Marlins are beating Pryor and Wood in 6 and 7 in order to knock the Cubs out. And I just remember watching Game 6, and it was just cruising. I mean, Pryor was dominant. It was just cruising along. And it was like a party the entire time because Mark Pryor was so locked in and dominant, just as you expected. I literally thought, this is amazing. This is just cruise control to the minute. And then, of course, the 8th inning happened.
Yeah, look, I remember watching those games with you. Now, being an older Cubs fan, I was kind of still a little bit apprehensive. But like you said, everything that I've learned about baseball in my time working in baseball is exactly what didn't happen in those games, right? I mean, you're supposed to be able to win the games at home when you're the better team and you've got two of the best pitchers you've ever had. And if you remember back then, 2003, Pryor and Wood were as good of a combo as there was in baseball. Yeah. The Cubs had great players all around the diamond. They had they had the magic going. That day, Wrigley was electric. The streets were full of people. Like the whole around the ballpark was.
It was nuts.
And we were just like, hey, this is it. You know, we're getting to the World Series. I can remember Game 6 watching. I had a treadmill at that college apartment, you know, and I was on the treadmill or house or whatever. I just remember being on the treadmill for Game 6 and starting to panic when I saw the momentum just drain out of the Cubs. Like the ball's down the line, you know, you're counting the outs at that point. And then there's Bartman, you know, and I'm sure that every day of his life, he's got to live with the fact that he got in the way. He became the Bill Buckner of Cubs baseball.
He's a Halloween costume now.
Right. And a bobblehead. I saw one of my buddies has a Cubs Facebook exchange thing, you know, with all like great gear and stuff. Mm-hmm. I've got a whole room. I should do these shows in my house once in a while because I have a whole Cubs room. It's just not my studio. I got some stuff out here too, but and I look at that and I saw where someone had a Steve Bartman bobblehead, and I guess since the Cubs won in 2016, like I would. Do I want that? And then I'm like, nah, I don't want that. You know, remember they bought like Harry Carey's restaurant, bought the ball and like blew it up.
They electrocuted it.
They electrocuted the ball.
Yeah.
But I remember trying to explain to my wife, like, what's going on? Like the guy reached over and interfered with the ball. And
it was fan interference. You'll never convince me otherwise.
No, man, no. And then all of a sudden, like, I switched to WGN. The game wasn't on WGN, but I switched to WGN. And it's like, it's more interesting than the game because we fall apart. Everything starts going to hell. And I'm watching WGN following this guy as he's just getting like, it was like he had to make the walk of shame because if you've ever been to that section, you just can't walk straight out of there. I mean, like there's just, you got to walk through all those people, and people were so angry at him. And over the years, you know, I've tried to ponder, like, how do I feel about this?
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
Have you ever seen the, I can't remember if it was the 30 for 30 or the Netflix documentary. There was something about Bartman. Maybe it was HBO, but have you ever seen that where he was like hidden in Wrigley Field? They had to take him into the offices.
Yep.
They had to hide him. Then they had to disguise him and change his clothes and put like different street clothes or a security shirt on him or something.
Yeah, they did.
Incognito, and then had to walk him like blocks and blocks away to get him to a safe space, like a safe house, until everything was done and over. And it was insane. And going back and watching that, I mean, that's such a brutal memory to think of. Again, I'm a little bit of a younger Cubs fan, so I wasn't aware of what happened in '84 other than just what I've watched and so forth. But when you watch that 2003 season or that Game 6, you know, in the back of my mind, I was like, this is weird. You know, is this what everyone talks about with the Cubs collapse? They always find the most insane, crazy way to collapse. And then past Bartman, when Alex Gonzalez drops the ground ball to shortstop.
Oh, yeah.
The tailor-made 6-4-3
Game's
double
over.
play. You're getting out of the inning. The game's going to be over. You're going to win. And when he just boots the ground ball, I mean, it's right here, Mick. I mean, it's a Sunday hop. And he just goes here too fast, and it hits off the end of the glove. When that happened, I let out a shriek in my apartment that was blood curdling because Bartman was like, is this happening? Is this really what happens if you're a Cubs fan? And then Gonzalez booting it, that to me was like, oh my God, we're witnessing it. This is it. This is, and that's what's so painful, especially then for Cubs fans. And, you know, I had never really cried over sports at that point in my life, but that night with Game 6, even with Game 7 still on deck, I've never felt that way. I couldn't sleep. I was crying. I locked my door. I turned my lights out. People were calling me. I didn't answer. My roommate was knocking on my door. He was asking if I was all right. He's a Braves fan. He was asking, he had people calling him to check on me. He said, "Hey, so-and-so wants to talk to you." I don't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Just leave me alone. I don't want to talk to a damn person. And I just remember like being shocked, just complete disbelief that I had experienced something that others had experienced in the past and that people were going to continue to talk about for years and years. Here we are 20 years later doing a YouTube show about it.
Yeah. I mean, I still can't believe it. I mean, like I still go through those memories of just trying to explain to people that weren't Cubs fans, like why this is just so Cubbish,
Do you blame Bartman though?
Well, that's where you got to take the conversation, back because, Tom Ricketts, they gave him a World Series ring in 2016, and the Cubs have actually tried to help the guy out. He's been hiding away.
So did the Marlins.
Yeah.
The Marlins tried to move him to Florida.
Yeah, he's never done an interview.
No.
He's tried to hide away in obscurity.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the advice I have for him at this point. Cubs won the World Series, and I think that for the most part we're all over it. We're. I mean, it still sucks,
sure.
but
it sucks. But I'm done. I'm good.
I know. Me too. He needs to come out of hiding and just wear it like Bill Buckner did. Buckner came out and he's on one of the best Curb Your Enthusiasm episodes ever. If you haven't seen it, you need to check it out. It's so funny. But the guys, the whole show's like, he Bucknered it, and then he's like, there's a softball game involved and all this stuff. It's really funny. But he laughed at himself because I think that's the only way that you can get over it. You truly can get over it. I think that Cubs fans have forgiven Bartman. There's still a part of me, though. I just believe that him interfering with that ball is something that I would not have done. And I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, everybody would have done that." No, not everybody would have done that. I would have gotten out of the way. I would have known. I'm a pretty good baseball fan. I would have gotten out of the way.
I am too. I don't know. It's
well, you watch Yankees and Yankees and Dodgers and Red Sox, and everybody pushes back out of the way. You got to be aware of the situation. And I think I would have gotten out of the way, or I would have caught the ball. But
here's the problem. Okay, and I'm surprised. I was looking up the umpires for this game. I thought that they had 6 umpires even back then. In the playoffs. Maybe it was only for the World Series that they did 6 umpires and not the LCS. But third base umpire Fieldin Colbreth doesn't get enough hate.
Oh, yeah, Colbreth. Yeah.
Steve Bartman is the shield for Fieldin Colbreth. Because if he just makes the call, right, we never know Steve Bartman's name.
Can you imagine if he would have called that?
The call?
Right. If he would have called that interference. So you think that the umpire should have just called that interference and then he would have called the batter out. But that's such a hard one. Although I know Moises Alou would have caught that ball. He was
100% would have called
no doubt, man. And then
100% would have.
But and a lot of people say this, Chad, is that they say if Alou would have just been cooler about the whole situation, instead of throwing his hands up and making a big deal about it, they just would have played on and it wouldn't have been that big of a deal.
But it was a big deal.
Well, I know, but that plays into it too, because it just changed. That also was part of changing the whole, feel and flow and momentum of the game.
And you're right. There's also a difference in being angry. Alou was angry. There's a difference in disbelief and anger. Because if Alou is I can't believe that just happened and has more the reaction of the surrender cobra and looking up and looking around oh my God, I can't believe that just happened.
Yeah.
That is a different attitude and energy versus the slamming it and cussing and spitting and throwing his gum and, everything else. But I don't blame Alou for that. It's just
You're a competitor.
Reaction. Yeah, the natural reaction goes, probably impacts that a little bit too.
What do you think Dusty Baker could have done better?
I mean, I don't
come out, make a pitching change immediately, bring in Kerry Wood right then.
You're not taking Pryor out. I mean, he hadn't done anything to be taken out at that point. It's just a pop fly down the line that should have been called interference that wasn't, and ended up as a bad break. So, no, I definitely don't take Pryor out. I think hindsight, of course, because I don't know that they would have done it now, and I'm not even sure they did it then or the exact time, but when Alex Gonzalez dropped the ground ball, I think that's when there should have been some sort of a timeout, where it's like a regroup or a settle down or a, hey, we can't control that. It's 2 plays behind us. We just got to move on. But even then, like, you do that more in like little league, high school type things. You kind of expect professional major leaguers. How often do you see a manager call timeout to come out and settle everybody down?
Right. But sometimes you got to, though. The good ones do. Right. But the good ones sense when they need to do that. Tony La Russa was always great at knowing when to go out before he was a White Sox manager. When he was like still with it upstairs, not so old he's falling asleep in the dugout, but like back, A's and Cardinals days. So he just had a sense of the game, like a real feel for like when to come out and kind of calm everybody down. Maybe not him, but his pitching coach, Dave Duncan or whatever. So I think that you have to assess the situation. It isn't little league, but at the same time, you could feel the momentum after that play. And looking back now, I mean, I guess hindsight's 20/20, but there could have been a lot more done. Now, if they would have won that World Series, then we wouldn't have 2016 and what that meant and how magical that season was. And that season started, and from day one, it felt like it was something magic was going on. Dexter Fowler's supposed to go to the Orioles, and then he just magically shows up at spring training, and all of the fun stuff that was going on there every day, and the vibe, and you could feel it. 2003 was kind of like that too. The team was there, the pitching was there, but one bad break, and and that's why we're still talking about it. Do you would you want a Steve Bartman bobblehead doll?
No.
You could put it right there behind you on your shelf.
Next to my Brickman here, or brick house. I mean, yeah. No, I'm good. Real quick on the rest of that series, Mark Pryor was just absolutely cruising in that game. But I think a lot of people also forget how badly the Cubs blew game 1. If you go back in that series and look at game 1, the Cubs lost that game in 11 innings on a Mike Lowell solo home run. But the Cubs came out that night and scored 4 runs in the first.
Right.
And they had a 4-0 lead, and they were absolutely on fire. And then it was the pitching in that game that really started to let it down. Zambrano was the game 1 starter. After a 4-0 lead, he gave up 5 runs in the third, and then another run was scored in the 6th that was unearned. But the Cubs were in a spot where they blew a huge lead. I mean, 4-0, and then they blow it. And then people may forget too, it was 6-6, and then going into the 9th, the Marlins took the lead in the 9th and made it 8-6. People forget, they probably don't forget this one as much. Sammy Sosa's 2-run homer, or his home run off of Yuga Urbina in the 9th inning, that tied it. But my whole point is, you just go back to game 1. The Cubs blew a 4-0 lead.
Well, that's how those series are, man.
Right. Yeah. And they were in a spot where they could have easily had a 2-0 lead going down to Florida. But obviously it didn't play out that way. But game 1 always bothers me.
Yeah. Well, I don't even remember that one. I just remember games 6 and 7, really, and how well they played to get to a 3-1 lead.
Yeah. And then, do you remember Kerry Wood's home run in game 7?
Yes.
when Kerry Wood tied it with his own bat and hit a home run in Game 7 to tie it,
I was crazy in there.
I thought that, okay, that's maybe the play or the at bat that was going to flip the streak, or flip the curse, that something crazy like that had to happen.
Yeah.
But obviously it didn't pan out that way. But that was a crazy, crazy situation.
Well, how about Dusty? Everybody remember Dusty. I mean, he was always known for being the manager that blew it with the Cubs. He blew it with the Giants. He blew it with the Reds.
Yeah.
He's always getting another chance. And then finally he gets to Houston and takes over because they cheated. And somebody on here mentioned this too, about no one being punished for the Astros. They were like, what about the other teams that were cheating in 2017? And the scary thing is we don't know how many teams were cheating. Maybe they're just the only ones that got caught, but it would be hard to believe that they were the only ones cheating. So I agree with that. But anyway, now, his narrative is he's won the World Series. Everybody forgets about just how bad he was in these playoff series up until then. So, well, look, this was fun, man. I mean, it was fun to kind of reminisce with the Cubs having won in 2016,
Right.
If it wasn't for 2016, we'd probably all still really hate Bartman. But now we're like, hey, go do Curb Your Enthusiasm. Come out of your shell, buddy.
It's cool. It's all good.
Stop hiding away.
Exactly.
Hey, guys, if you're not part of the channel, we want to include you. And we also want to hear what you think about Steve Bartman. Was it his fault? Was it the Cubs' fault? Was it the umpire's fault? Tell us your thoughts on it. Some of you guys were actually at the game, but couldn't really tell what was going on from where your seats were, or maybe you can, and you knew that it was kind of the beginning of a typical Cubs ending. So that's what I want to know about in the comments section. Thanks for hanging out with us, and like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and hit the bell.